discover the benefits of Cloud ERP solutions for mining companies. And our presenter today is our CEO, Paul Caron. He has over 30 years of experience in the mining industry.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Paul Caron. I started this company in 1999. So we're in the 26th year in business. What we do is we implement ER software for growing companies, and many of our clients, matter of fact, most of our clients are in the mining industry. So this little map shows that we have team members in Vancouver, in Toronto, and in Lima, Peru, and we have clients all over the world, Canada, US, Africa, South America. Matter of fact, one of our newest clients is in the US, in Alaska. So today I'm going to talk about growth and ERP software. Most companies want to grow, and an ERP solution is really essential to provide a basis for that growth. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges with the normal way that people implement ERP software, and then I'm going to suggest a different approach, which is to use Acumatica Cloud ERP early in the process and have it grow with you. So just by way of conceptualizing this here, looking at this mountain peak, I want to use this as an analogy for the three different tiers of ERP software. So if you look at the largest peak, that might represent tier 1 software, which is ERP software, accounting, business management, purchasing, supply chain, but for very, very large companies. So these are multi-million-dollar solutions. Examples might be SAP or Oracle. IFS is another one that's gaining popularity. Microsoft F&O, which used to be called Exapta. On the other end of the scale, the smaller peak might be level 1. Okay, and level 1 software is the entry-level stuff. So that's where, for very small companies, QuickBooks, Sage 50, programs like that. With the mountain range, there's not just peaks, that there's foothills and smaller peaks, and that's what it's like in the ERP business. It's not a pure distinction between them. There's some crossover between all of these different tiers. But our world is really the middle range there, tier 2. This is where we've worked for 25 years. This is where Acumatica fits. Sage, some of the Sage solutions fit in here. Microsoft Business Central. So we started with ACPAC 25 years ago, which is now called Sage 300. We've worked with Microsoft over the years. We've worked with different Sage products, and we're really happy that we've now settled on Acumatica after all these years, which is a cloud-based solution headquartered in Seattle. So we've implemented Acumatica in Canada, in the US, and in South America, in Peru. And we've dealt with clients of all different sizes, including, as I mentioned, mostly mining companies. I want to talk a little bit about how businesses start out and what they do for their accounting software and ERP software. And I call this Plan A. It's quite common. You start a business, the thought of what you're going to use for your accounting system and ERP is probably not top of mind, except to start small and save money. So you buy entry level. And then the thought be, hey, when we grow, we're going to move to an ERP. And then when we become huge, we're going to move to a tier 1. All we have to do is convert. So that seems simple. But if we consider that there's other issues involved, you can see that it isn't really that simple. There's problems starting a business, getting staff, finding a market, getting the pricing right. But there's another problem that arises when you're successful. So there you go. You're busy, you're shipping product, you've got people all over the place. Guess what? Your entry-level software just doesn't work for you. So quicker than you may have anticipated, you've outgrown that software. And the limitations make it difficult to get by. So what happens is a huge amount of Excel spreadsheets. You've got an accounting system, and then you've got a side system to track what the accounting system doesn't do. So now you're faced with your very first data conversion. And I don't know about you, but I haven't heard very many people say that they just love to do another data conversion. There's really, four clear reasons for that. One is conversions are expensive. It's really normal when you're going to go from QuickBooks to, say, a tier 2 ERP to cost tens of thousands of dollars. It can take 3 to 4 months or more to do this conversion. So it costs a lot of money. Secondly, they're all consuming. You can't do a data conversion and an upgrade to a different system without your staff getting involved in teaching the consultants what your business is all about, in testing. So it becomes all consuming and time is taken away from their jobs. So sales can drop, customer service is impacted, billable hours go down, shipping gets affected. All of these things affect the profit of the company. Thirdly, it's hard to learn new software because everything you do is now different. And it seems kind of illogical. So people get confused and they're less efficient. And fourth, that 80-year-old bookkeeper that's used your system from the start, and now you're asking her to learn a new system, you are starting to get some pushback. The old way of doing things is what they're used to, and staff may push back. So these are reasons why you really want to avoid data conversions. And another consideration is that now you've moved from entry level to tier 2, you have ongoing costs, particularly if your tier 2 software is user based, because now you need to add more people in the system. And if it's user based, that's going to penalize you. That's one of the features of Acumatica that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So when we factor in all of these costs, you see that the ideal world of plan A is kind of replaced with the brutal truth of conversions, uh, inadequate functionality. So if we look at maybe year 3, you move from entry level to tier 2, and guess what? Your profits are now a loss because of these expenses, but you're still growing. So now in year 5, you're moving to tier 1. Well, forget about making any money because you've just made your business really, really complicated. There's some real world examples that kind of drive this home. When Revlon acquired Elizabeth Arden, they decided to move to a tier 1 solution. $64 million in losses later, they abandoned that. Nike had a loss of $400 million in their conversion. And the most famous of all of these is Waste Management, which is a garbage collection company. They ended up suing SAP for $1 billion because of their losses. So in conclusion, starting small and converting is not always the best opportunity. So the best option. So what's the opportunity that I see? Well, I see that if we can get a low cost tier 2 software ERP in early for companies and then let it grow with them, we've got a great opportunity here. We've got a way to help companies grow without all of the mess of conversions, without limited functionality at the beginning. And maybe we're going to have that, plan A growth that we hope to see. So this is what we see with Acumatica Cloud ERP for a lot of reasons, and one of them is the way that they deliver their software and the options that they have for pricing. So let's talk about that. So I'm going to use mining as an example because it's a great industry because it really is clear on the growth. So what you see here is the open pit mine in Cassiar, BC, which is my hometown. It's just south of the Yukon border, and this mine was operational from 1952 to 1992. So, 40 years for an open pit mine. Now I've said open pit, but what you see here is a peak. And in fact, in Cassiar, when they started mining, the ore was right at the surface of the peak. And over the 40 years of operation, that peak became a very deep pit. So they really did move mountains up there. It's quite interesting. My first job in Cassiar was on the dump. So I used to stand there and tell these dump trucks where to dump the waste rock. This is obviously an old picture, and we wouldn't dream of using a truck like this to run a mining operation now. It's just too small. And in the same way, why would you start your exploration company, your mining operation, with entry-level software that's just too small? Okay, so let's talk about why I think mining is a great industry to talk about growth, and that is the mining life cycle. So what this diagram shows you is really our discussion on what's required in an ERP system at each phase of the mining life cycle. So I won't go through this in detail. There's a lot of text here, but at the exploration phase, what are you doing? You need some good financial reporting. You probably need multi-currency. Maybe you need projects for drilling programs. And as you move along to assessment, you need more development. Now you're talking about asset maintenance, some extended functionality around payroll. And in operations, now you're in full swing and you need a really efficient and very powerful ERP solution. So I want to mention that the points that I've made here are all about exploration and starting small. But there are some of you that are on the call that are working for companies that are already in operations. And Acumatica ERP really does scale. It scales down to replace entry-level software, and it scales up to replace tier 1 software. There's a lot of functionality at the top end. I'm going to mention that the points that I've made here are all about exploration and starting small. But there are some of you that are on the call that are working for companies that are already in operations. And Acumatica ERP really does scale. It scales down to replace entry-level software, and it scales up to replace tier 1 software. There's a lot of functionality at the top end. I'm going to mention that the points that I've made here are all about exploration, and this session is really in line with AMEBC's Roundup, which is all about exploration. So that's what I'll be discussing today. Okay, so I've discussed two challenges of starting too small. Number one, lack of functionality, and number two, the pain and suffering caused by data conversions. So if we can start with an ERP that grows with you, we can see that it's going to get rid of both of those things, give you functionality, get rid of data conversions. So I'm going to concentrate now and turn my attention to Acumatica. We'll talk about the advanced functionality and the price structure, but let's talk about dollars first, because we'll get to the brass tacks here. So at the Roundup convention next week, we're announcing Caron Explore. So this is part of our complete Caron mining solutions powered by Acumatica. The components of Caron Explore are really two things. The core Acumatica software for financial functionality, built on what Acumatica calls the essentials level, which is high functionality at low price. Exactly what we're looking for exploration companies. The other component of this is services by Caron Business Solutions, which we do at a fixed fee implementation, and flexibility. So we will have a core a core package that will include financial functionality and lots of options to add functionality when you're ready to. So price-wise, Caron Explore is just over $7,200 per year for the software. And implementation, we're handling that with a fixed fee of $10,000 per year spread over 2 years. So it makes it quite affordable, and compared to what we see with other tier 2 ERP solutions, including ones that we've implemented, Explore is less than 40% of those programs. And we're also, with Roundup, we're actually throwing in a bundle of reports specific to the mining industry. So now we've really achieved that affordability that we're looking at. So now let's talk about functionality. We've kind of provided a solution now that an exploration company can look at reasonably and afford. What are they getting for that? So if you look at the first part of this table here, Any entry-level software can handle this. Less than 10 users, basic accounting, basic accounts payable, tax management. Yep, some currency conversions are handled. But the bottom part of the table here is where we run into trouble with entry-level and mining companies. Mining companies are typically multi-company. There's usually a lot of entities involved with that. There's limited functionality on entry-level software. Fixed assets can be really, really important to a mining company. And again, limited functionality with entry-level software. You need multiple books of depreciation. You need all kinds of things that are just not offered there. Expense entry, very important. Employees may not be able to do remote expense entry on their mobile with entry-level software. You can do that with Acumatica. Accounts payable processing tends to be a huge deal. Like, what goes on in exploration companies, there's no revenue. You're not billing anybody, but you've got a lot of accounts payable. So entry-level software doesn't usually allow for things like automatic recognition of invoices that Acumatica does. And lastly, with most public companies, mining companies are subject to audit and expenditure approvals and segregation of duties. So that is stuff that's somewhat limited. So what could be better? I think you know where I'm going with this. What can be better is Acumatica Essentials, and as we've packaged this and discussed, Caron Explore. So in every one of these features, Acumatica handles it, and not only handles it, but they provide advanced functionality here. So in every single level, you're getting the same type of functionality that you would get if you were a much larger company. It's just priced at a small company basis. There's some limitations, like 10 named users maximum, but other than that, it's the same functionality. The interesting thing here is that you can stay on Acumatica Essentials or Caron Explore for quite a long time. If you're not outgrowing 10 users and the functionality within there, which is good, you can stay on that system a long time. When you do want to move up, you can move up without conversion. We simply would change the licenses to the next level of Acumatica. You get the additional functionality, and away you go. So let's have a look at Acumatica, and I'll show you some of that functionality that I'm talking about. So here we are. We've created a test company here called Caron Mining. I could have probably done a better job on the logo, but it's okay. I'm logged in here as the administrator, and I've created the system to basically give me a default to a dashboard, the AP Clerk dashboard, just because I wanted to talk a bit about that. You'll see that this is running on the browser. It's pure cloud. You'll see also that I've got my user information here. I've selected May 2023 for my date because I wanted to show some transactions in this system, and my data is not quite up to 2025 yet. It's also a multi-company system. So easy as just looking at the drop down, we'll see that there's 6 companies involved in my organization. If I was to look at my Arizona one, it's as easy as that. I can use different colors to make sure that we're not actually confused as to which company we're in. But basically, we have full multi-company functionality here out of the box. On the left, we just see all of the modules that we've activated according to our license. So, our clients may have some of these, less of these. In this case, I've got finance, I've got banking, and I've even got project management involved, activated in my demo environment here. Payables and receivables, fixed assets, etc. There's a lot of functionality available that I haven't deployed, and it's simply through licensing and selection that you get that. Another really nice feature in terms of look and feel is the favorites. So under favorites, you put those tasks that you often access, and you don't have to go hunting for them. They're right there in the favorite thing. So let's have a quick look at the AP dashboard. So one of the things that Acumatica prides themselves on is not having to have programmers and not having to do a lot of detailed customizations, right? So a dashboard is useful. Some people love them, some people hate them. I actually think dashboards, if they're kept simple and meaningful, are very, very good, very useful. And those are the two key things. Make sure they're giving you useful information and make sure that they're fairly easy to operate. So all of these are widgets in the system, easily designed by an end user. Training on this is very easy to get, and either we help you or you do it yourself, but there's no programming involved. So let me just show you one of these things. So I've got PO receipts. I've received some information, but I haven't got bills yet. So let's have a look at that. If I drill down, I'm actually seeing those 7 PO receipts that I talked about. So I can drill down, I can drill around, I can open up any of these. Easy to do that, and a dashboard is kind of a nice way to start with that. The other thing you'll see is different colors, and the concept here, just to demonstrate that it's not complicated to change the look and feel of Acumatica, is that the colors can mean something. Red means give me an alert, green means everything is good, and yellow is a warning. So let's look at PO receipts and why it actually shows a warning. You know, there's 7 PO receipts that we're going to get bills for. What does that really mean, and why is that considered a warning? So if I flip quickly into the design, I can easily go and look at that widget. And basically what it's saying is, look, a normal level is 5. So if we had 5 or less, that would be green. An alarm level is 10. So if there's 10 or more, it'd be red. And because 7 is between the two, it's yellow. It's as simple as that. So just a bit of a way just to demonstrate to you that, you know, personalization, configuration of the system without programming is very, very easy to do. Another really powerful feature of Acumatica is universal search. So right at the top, this looks everywhere that you want. And everywhere, I do mean everywhere. Let me give you an example. I'm going to type in the word vendor here. Now, it's identified that throughout the program, there's 40 different menu items I could get to that have the word vendor in them. But not only that, I can say, well, are there transactions, are there profiles that have the word vendor? I changed the name of one of my vendors to call it Zemp Professional Vendor, so it shows up there. But if I had typed in Smith at the top, all of the Smiths would have shown up. And I can easily find those, either a transaction that was posted to that vendor or the vendor itself. Help topics. I'm kind of confused about how I handle vendors. I click on the help topics and all of the help comes up. And if there were files, if you attached files anywhere in Acumatica that had the word vendor on them, they would show up here. So what we're seeing here is all of the user guide stuff, for instance, that's shown up. So very, very powerful. Universal search is throughout the system. It's very powerful. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about something that's extremely important to mining companies, and that is reporting not just on numbers, but reporting on progress. You know, tons mined, tons milled, drill holes drilled, right? Those are important things, and oftentimes our clients in the old legacy systems would handle things like that in Excel, but we don't want to rely on Excel. And so Acumatica has different ledgers that really let us handle this. So here's an example. In my sample company, I've set up these ledgers. An actual ledger is like the general ledger. That's where the transactions get posted, journal entries end up there, accounts payable, inventory, purchasing transactions all get posted to the general ledger. I've got a couple. I've got a US one, I've got a Canadian one. A reporting ledger, it lets you say, okay, yeah, my functional currency might be, US, but I want to report in Canadian. I can do that through reporting ledger. Works like a charm. Very easy multi-currency reporting. Budget ledgers are exactly that. But then they've added what they call statistical ledgers. And statistical ledgers are basically, they can be unbalanced. It's not like you have to do a balanced journal entry to post to them, but it's for things like recording exactly what I said, tons milled, things that you've processed through the month, through the week, through the day. You can easily enter them right into the system. And why would we do that? Well, a really common report. This is a group of icons that we just created in the system. And in there, I put monthly statistics, right? So very often our clients are asking us to produce a report like this. If they do it, they're often doing it in Excel. But here's a good example. It's a typical expense report with monthly on the left-hand side and year-to-date on the right-hand side. But if you look at the items in there, I don't just have dollars, mill uptime is days, right? But milling cost is dollars. So tons milled is quantity. But if you look at milling costs, we can now have milling costs per ton milled, right? So the functionality in the reporting using statistical ledgers is something that's been, requested from our mining clients for a long time. With Acumatica, we can do this right out of the box. So very nice. Just to kind of close off this area of analysis here is that we talked about the accounts payable clerk dashboard, but now we're talking about milling and mining. Well, what about the mine manager? What about the mill manager? Well, again, the dashboards can be configured the way that they want. So a mill manager might be interested in these things. What's the roaster cost? What's the uptime of the mill? And then how much tons from the statistical ledger that we've milled. Whereas a mine manager, same idea, and you're just looking at mining costs. Okay, so just a kind of a quick overview and the look and feel of things, dashboards and statistical ledgers. One of the quick wins, if you will, for a mining company using Acumatica. Mining companies tend to be public companies, and therefore approvals are important. You get that SOX audit once a year. These guys want to see things like that. So approval of expenditures easily handled within Acumatica. In this case, I've got I've done approval maps in this sample data for purchase orders and for accounts payable. And as you'll see, it's quite powerful. So for the exploration department, these are the approval maps that I want to follow. So if I get an AP bill and it's $60,000, it's actually going to go to the CFO for approval. Now I can say, well, I want to go to the exploration VP first, and then the CFO, or I can go directly to the CFO. It's a different approval map for permitting, land, and environment. For corporate development. They're all different. What's nice about this is that the CFO or the CEO or the vice president of exploration gets an email. They can approve that or reject that bill based right from their mobile phone. They can appoint a delegate when they're on vacation so someone else can approve it. Very powerful stuff and a complete audit trail all the way through. Okay, so that's a feature that I think is excellent and very powerful throughout Acumatica, not just accounts payable, but anything. In addition to that, worth mentioning, there's also a concept of business events. So for instance, if a new vendor, suddenly the size of the bill is much higher, that could be a business event that triggers an action. We have to do something about that, contact the vendor. One of the clients that we're working with right now wants to get an alert whenever a vendor's added, just so someone to have a second look at it. That's a business event that can easily be configured. Okay, lots of alerts like that. Currency rates. So multi-currency is a big deal in mining companies, in my experience, in most companies actually. So we can have different currency rates, and the system automatically on a daily basis will go out and get the currency rates. You can see I haven't done mine for a while because my demo system is not up and running that often. But basically, we have effective currency rates, spot rate, average rate, handled out of the box by Acumatica. Another feature I mentioned, accounts payable. Not really something I can show on here, but right out of the box with Acumatica, you can have AP document recognition. So when you get these mountains of accounts payable bills in, if the vendors are told to email it to a certain email called like accountspayable@caronmining.com, the system will recognize that and bring it into an accounts payable bill so that we can actually process it. So instead of us going here and entering one at a time, all the invoices or importing them from Excel, we can just have the system automatically bring them in. And that can be done with drag and drop. That can be done with emails, as I mentioned. Very, very nice. Very how it's handled. Okay. Close a few of these guys. I wanted to talk also about vendors. So one of the nice things about vendors that can be an annoyance with some systems is multiple locations. So, I've got a couple here. They're both in Elko, Nevada, but more likely we'd have a vendor that's got one location in the Yukon, one location in South America, and those locations might have different tax rates. They might have different shipping details. So you can have multiple locations for vendors. So very good functionality around vendor management. Lastly, I want to talk about purchase orders. So in NPO, there's a lot of different purchase orders that you can create. They can be normal. You can have drop ship purchase orders. You could have drop ship to a project, which is more likely for a mining company because you would say, I want to bring this in and charge it to that project right away. Blanket POs, standard POs, full standard costing, full landed cost calculations. This shows a bit of a different thing too. Basically, it's called the side panel. So if you look at a list of POs, if I want to go in and I'm trying to find some details, I could click and open every single one of those. But it's kind of repetitive. It's a long list. Do I really want to go through that? What side panels let you do is basically as I just go through the list, it just brings up relevant information right on the screen in front of me. So I'm really trying to find that PO where there was, this particular thing bought for that branch. I can do it, and the side panel will show that. I can always drill in and get more detail, but this is a very quick way to look at things. The last thing I'll mention about purchase orders is there's a purchase requisition system, and it's much more than just standard requisitioning. With PO recognition, you can do bidding. You can send your purchase order to multiple potential suppliers, get their bids, manage their bids, and handle it. Great functionality for that. Really useful when budgets are tight and have to be controlled. So what I wanted to show you there is by no means a complete in-depth demo of Acumatica because there's a lot of functionality here, but just to give you an idea of where the functionality is at all levels of Acumatica. So if we're talking about essentials, all of this functionality is available. And this system will really grow with you. The constraints that you're going to find is going to be the number of transactions that you can handle with the essentials level. That's why it's really suited to an exploration company. But when you start operations and you go from 1,000 invoices a week to 10,000 invoices a week, that's when you're going to be moving up. But you move up to a different level with no data conversion. You simply change the licensing. So we've gotten rid of that whole pain and frustration of the conversions. Given you functionality that's enterprise level at the first phase of the mine life cycle and giving you a way to grow without going through data conversions. So we will be at Roundup next week on Wednesday and Thursday, booth 1602. If you're attending Roundup, please drop by. Happy to talk to you about the requirements for your company, and happy to get into much more detail. As you can see, I kind of love this product, about what we can offer, how we work with mining companies, and how Acumatica can work.
So what's included with Caron Explore?
Caron Explorer is new for us, and it's just a package of what we think is going to be really required by you. So here's our slick, our white paper on it, if you will. So basically, what I talked about in the pricing that I quoted is, all of the core functionality for finance. So all the finance modules, general ledger, accounts payable. If you're doing if there's any chance that you have any sales, accounts receivable is included. It's not usually used for a mining company. But in the core financials, you've got multiple branches, multiple companies, currencies, financial, budget, all of the things I talked about. Bank imports, advanced payments, so you can pay in multitude of ways. The AP document recognition I talked about, approvals, general ledger, financial, tax, currency, accounts payable, and then approval workflows. So those are all included in the dollar amount that I talked about earlier, but there's lots and lots of modules. And so if you wanted to add intercompany accounting, that can be added. When you do look at intercompany accounting as an example, that's where you might actually use accounts receivable, because some of our clients actually bill between companies. So one company is billing the other company, and the system handles that. So when you create the invoice on accounts receivable in one company, it creates the payable on the other. Other intercompany transactions are simply a bill that comes in, but it's for multiple companies. The system automatically creates due to, due from. Okay. Fixed assets can be added, project accounting can be added, all of these. This is by no means a complete list. There's a lot of optional modules that can be added. And the other part, as I mentioned, of Caron Explore is our implementation at a fixed fee. And basically from this, we're going to get you up and running on all of the core functionality, and any optional ones that you have, and we'll always quote on the fixed fee for our work to do that. Okay, I hope that answers that question.
Mention the essentials level. What are the different levels of Acumatica?
It's a bit of a confusing diagram, but just a quick discussion on this is, Acumatica provides their software in different editions, and really think of the editions as bundles. A manufacturing edition is basically inventory and some manufacturing functionality, all bundled together at an attractive price to suit manufacturing companies. Distribution edition is for distributors. What we've done is we've taken the general business edition and we've added specific things for mining. So mining is not an Acumatica edition, it's a Caron Business Solutions edition, and that's what we call it, Caron Mining Solutions powered by Acumatica. So that's one thing, it's the additions. But then the levels I talked about here. So that's essentials that we are including in Caron Explore. It's a maximum of 10 users, and that's the only level where there's a user maximum. And it basically is usually used for companies under 20 employees. When you move up, the select edition, select level, I should be careful. These are additions and these are levels. The select level is usually for companies under 50 employees. The biggest difference is the number of transactions that can be handled. The Prime Edition, now we're getting to be 200 employees. And then the Enterprise. And this is what I talked briefly about at the beginning, is that if you're an operating mining company and you're looking at SAP, maybe just take one step and have a look at Acumatica, because at that level, there's lots of extra resources. And these resources, like Transaction Boost and separate tenants reserved for you, all of these things allow Acumatica to compete at the very high level as well. So yes, they have a cost to them, and they're certainly more than essentials, but compared to tier one, much, much less expensive. And the functionality, I would argue, is very, very similar for mining companies especially. So there's the different levels and additions. Well, thank you, everybody. So feel free to reach out. Thank you for attending today, and I hope you found it informative.